Hey, thanks for checking out Press Pause with Vig Villain. I'm Jeff. The villain is currently teaching an aerobic pole dancing class at a senior living center. Now, I know when he's here, this channel is all about how many octopus farts it takes to push a puppy on a skateboard, but today we're going to talk about video game news. Let's get right into it. All right, first up, let's talk about a few game delays. Banishers, Ghost of New Eden from Focus Entertainment and Don't Nod has announced a delay into next year, moving the game from November 7th of this year to February 13th of 2024, just in time for a little love. With so many unforgettable games in 2023, it's important that each of them shines brightly. Banishers Ghost of New Eden is no exception. Probably a smart decision to postpone the game and get away from all these huge mega releases that are coming. Though, if it was actually a tech issue, it's the perfect cover. A lot of good games, guys. We're just pushing it back for that reason only. No, but in all seriousness, this game does look fantastic. I'm excited for it. So let's hope Banishers Ghost of New Eden is an awesome game when it launches in February. A lot of games are moving to Q1 of next year, which makes you wonder if there's not going to be a traffic jam of publisher hands trying to get into our wallets. Are they just going to keep delaying? Eventually, we just have to push this bottleneck out. All right, in the second delay, we've got Hellboy Web of Weird. This game is only getting pushed 2 weeks. It was supposed to launch October 4th. It's now being pushed to October 18th. It looks like, according to their Twitter, to make sure that everyone can play the game on everything, everywhere, all at once. Reference to the movie. Very clever, but also perhaps a reference to the fact that many games are launching on stagnated releases across devices. You know, for bigger games, I think it's harder to delay that release. For a game like this, 2 weeks, not a big deal. Here's hoping they're able to iron out all the things delaying it from launching on everything, everywhere, all at once. Oh no, now I've made the joke. What the hell is wrong with me? Okay, FC 24 is coming up, and it is not FIFA. It is not FIFA, it's FC 24. It's a whole new thing. It's nothing to do with FIFA. And just to make sure we know that, EA has delisted all of the FIFA games. Without warning, FIFA 23 is no longer available from the PlayStation Store, the Microsoft Store, the eShop, Steam. It's gone. This is clearly because the license to use the name FIFA is up, much like when racing video games delist because they don't have the licenses from car manufacturers anymore. It looks like maybe physical FIFA copies are now going to become a collector's item because you won't be able to get them anymore. That's the craziest shit I've ever said. But maybe. All right, as I talked about a couple of weeks ago, with the release of the iPhone 15, a lot of PC console quality games are making their way to the iPhone. RE4 is up for pre-orders now, and it is $59.99. I don't know what I was expecting. I'm not necessarily surprised by that, but still, it just doesn't sit right. $59.99 for a mobile title. And I think this right here is going to be one of the big pricing issues in the future. The problem with Apple devices is while they're numerous and plentiful and they have an army of users, they're a closed ecosystem. I think mobile game players have not shown a desire for these types of games. And I don't know that console and PC gamers are going to be comfortable paying full price for a handheld version of something they can remote play. The big issue is going to be getting Apple to open up and allow these companies to offer you these products across devices, because screen agnosticism is coming for games. And I don't see this business model having legs. $60 full price games that lock you to iOS. Please, no, please. No. If it becomes the standard that ports to iOS are $60 full price, may God have mercy on our souls. All right, the head of PlayStation is preparing his exit. Jim Ryan, president and CEO of SIE, has announced his intention to depart the company early next year. After 30 years at Sony and making it all the way to the top chair, I think retirement's probably owed the guy. I think the bigger question for Sony going forward is who takes over that chair. Now, Sony has put out their temporary management structure in the wake of Ryan departing, and it looks like Sony Group President, COO, and CFO Hiroki Totoki will assume the role of chairman of SIE and interim CEO for SIE, working closely with Sony Group CEO Yoshida and the management team of SIE to define the next chapter of PlayStation's future, including the succession of the SIE CEO role. Now, this is very interesting. This is big news for PlayStation fans. There's a lot of directions they could go here. PlayStation is sort of poised on a precipice, even though it's at the top of its game right now. They're also making a push into service-based games and they have a publicly stated goal of getting more into mobile. The question becomes, do you continue what they've normally done, including with Jim Ryan, bring in that internal higher up, somebody who really knows the brand, who really appreciates the history of what PlayStation is? Or do you look for maybe outside talent or somebody with more of a vision towards these live service and mobile games that you have, ambitions on? Obviously, I know what my answer would be. I'd love to see Sony focus on the games I love, like Ghost of Tsushima, Uncharted, Miles Morales, etc. However, that doesn't mean they're going to do it. I wish I could snap my fingers, guys. I would have a lot more of you watching these. But it is a potential turning point for Sony as they kind of chart their path forward. Jim Ryan has led them to record sales, a huge launch for the PS5. However, they're at a crossroads here as far as where they go for their next generation of things. And the leader they pick and what they decide in the next few months is going to have a lot of impact on the direction of PlayStation for, the next 5 to 10 years. Speaking of making some changes, SEGA is canceling Hyenas, the extraction shooter that they just demoed like a month ago at Gamescom, and some other unknown titles. Okay, so we've got here from the Sega Sammy website an official notice. The notice regarding implementation of structural reforms in the consumer area entertainment contents business. So that is not just gaming for Sega Sammy. That's also like their animation and TV departments, their like more traditional like gaming machines like pachinko, etc. So it's a lot rolled into that. This structural reform, though, is mainly focused across their European divisions. All right, so taking a look here, they've set the consumer area as a growth area for Sega Sammy. They say they've achieved rapid earnings growth in recent years by promoting the global branding of its existing IPs. With that in mind, they're canceling titles under development, and they say in response to the lower profitability of the European region, we've reviewed the portfolio of each development base, and the resulting action will be to cancel Hyenas and some unannounced titles under development. 2. Reduction of fixed expenses. We will implement reduction of various fixed expenses at several group companies in relevant regions, centered on the Creative Assembly studio. We expect to incur one-time expenses related to reduction of fixed expenses. Fixed expenses: building lease, licensing, salaries. It's a concerning look there, but canceling an entire game as well as some other unannounced titles. Condolences go out to the teams in Europe there at Creative Assembly. I know that's 5 different studios. Hopefully they're able to avoid layoffs, but this doesn't look good for that. But this, I think, goes on to show a larger problem. Hyenas was about to come out. You got to expect, right? They're doing a beta. They showed the game at Gamescom. There was a playable build. They had to be close, and I think a lot of these companies, they're realizing, when you look at them talking about a focus on existing branding, it goes back to that Phil Spencer email that leaked with all the Xbox stuff. These companies are very risk averse, and they are taking big bets on expensive games. And when those bets don't pay off, we see things like what happened with Forspoken, where Square Enix dissolved the company and swallowed it up, right? We see things like when Immortals of Avium doesn't hit the hit to that studio. These games are getting to a point where for these bigger companies, when they're placing high dollar bets and they're getting skittish around them, and it's not good for developers, which means it's not good for the health of the industry. When studios are shuttering, if they miss one title, like that suffocates art. And that's I don't know the solution, because nobody wants games that are less impressive, right? The big AAA games are one of the things that make gaming excited. And as much as I love AA and indie, I do look forward to those mega experiences. But if it leads to like studios being this scared to release games, and to publishers, or not publishers, but studios getting closed down or massive layoffs when they miss on a title, then they're not going to be able to take risks. And we're just going to be on like, Gears of War 15 and God of War 19 in 20 years. They're just going to keep pumping out the same stuff. So this is disappointing to see. I understand it's from a business standpoint, but man, it's a real bummer when they spell it out for you like that. We're going with our old IPs. We're not going to take risks. So we're canceling the admittedly goofy looking Hyenas. However, Zero G fights coming off of Starfield, and those Zero G fights, I could see it being a pretty fun multiplayer experience. That segues actually quite nicely into what I've been playing, which is still Starfield, and then I've been juggling it with Sea of Stars. I'm going back and forth in these games, loving both of them, trying desperately to finish them before we get too far into October, and Spider-Man 2, Mario Wonder, Alan Wake 2 are all right there, because that's going to be an insane couple of weeks for me. Starfield. I know I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I'm still playing it. I'm still loving it. It is a phenomenal game. Everything that I would want out of a Bethesda RPG, I feel like I'm getting. With one caveat. The more I play, the more I realize the difference between Starfield and Skyrim, which is my personal favorite Bethesda title. In Starfield, because of the grav drive, travel is very segmented. It's loading screens, essentially, right? Like, hyperspace, as cool as it is in a sci-fi movie, in a game, it's just a loading screen. Whereas in Skyrim, you're traveling. You can go from the Rift all the way to Solitude. I think the trade-off is worth it. I kind of go back and forth on it. There's times where I miss that finding of adventure on a road that you would uncover in Skyrim. But at the same time, I'm kind of loving jumping into systems and getting hailed by random things. I'm loving the wild ecosystems and different environments that I find myself in Starfield. There are differences to that, but I'm still really fascinated by the game. Deeply invested. Sea of Stars is like a complete 180 from that. This is a very tightly scripted JRPG game from the team behind The Messenger. It's clearly Chrono Trigger inspired. It's got the kind of active time battling, and it is very linear. There's no grinding in this game. The battles are clear set pieces. It's very focused. It's very tight. You are, strapped in on this journey, and it's wonderfully done. The music is incredible. The battles, though, surprisingly for me, because when I first saw this game, it was all about the music, the vibe, the pixel art, but the battles are the star here. It is such a wonderfully well done These are such wonderfully well done mechanics here. You're looking at timed blocks and attacks, kind of like Super Mario RPG. I hear it's not a game I've played, but the timing on these blocks and attacks really keeps you in the moment. Even though it's a turn-based system, you're very much in the battles. Even with games I really like Octopath Traveler, there comes a time when the grind and the lists, it pulls me off the game a little bit. But this has kept me very focused on the combat and hooked in a way I'm not always by turn-based games. Turn-based games for me generally are like, oh, I got a little time to chill, let me play this game. And this game has me hooked the way a lot of more active battles in games usually do. So really loving this game. On top of that, yes, the pixel art is fire. The music is incredible. The story's been great. Highly recommend this game. It is on PlayStation Plus and Game Pass. So if you have those subs, why would you not check it out? It's also on Nintendo and Switch for, I believe, $34.99. One thing that's been making its rounds I wanted to touch on is apparently Capcom COO, Sugimoto, has said that games are too cheap and they need to be more expensive, so they'll be raising prices. All right, so via Switchsoku, for the translation, we've got Sugimoto saying, personally, I feel that game prices are too low. Development costs are about 100 times higher than during the Famicom era, but software prices have not gone up that much. There is also a need to raise wages. Considering the fact that wages are rising in the industry as a whole, I think raising unit prices is a healthy option for business. Sure, and also no. All of these game companies that have raised prices to 70, they just came off a period of announcing record profits. Now, to be fair, part of that record profits was from the years when everybody was stuck at home. So they were all playing games and they made a ton of money, and their share prices went up and their shareholders made a lot of money and they were all very happy. The world has gone back to normal. Those numbers have dropped a little from those historic highs, and they can't have that. They can't explain why the number got smaller to shareholders. They don't care. They want number go big, number be big. The number was big 2 years ago, make the number big again. So even though they've had record profit and it's not like, oh no, we're not making any money, they need that number to be big. And so they're communicating it to you by saying, oh, we need to pay our developers more. We need to do this more. Sort of. But also they just need that shareholder number to go up. And they had an immense historic period when everybody was home. And they need that to stick around, even though not everybody's home anymore. And even though that was this wild event, They need it. They need that money. So you're going to give it to them. And that's the real truth of it, right? We can talk all day about whether these prices matter, whether $70 is fair for a game. The market's going to decide. People are going to buy it or they're not. People are going to wait for a sale on some games and they're going to get it for cheaper, but enough people are going to buy it at 70. That's why they're doing it, right? They're not the first studio to do $70 games. It hasn't seemed to have had an effect on games coming out from PlayStation. It doesn't seem to have had an effect on Starfield from Microsoft. Modern Warfare is selling like hotcakes at $70. So it is what it is. Nobody likes to pay more money, but they're giving us a warning. Capcom games are going to get more expensive. All right, final story. I want to talk about the fact that Microsoft has likely cleared the CMA hurdle as far as buying Activision and Blizzard. They did so by making a deal with Ubisoft. Ubisoft will have the cloud rights to Activision Blizzard games. They'll be able to license it back to Xbox. However, they won't be doing that exclusively. Part of the agreement is Microsoft won't require exclusive rights from Ubisoft, which means Ubisoft will be selling the cloud rights to these games to other subscription services, and Microsoft will be forced to allow them to put it on devices other than Windows, meaning Linux, iOS maybe, I guess. It'll still mostly be on Windows, which is why Microsoft was fine with this. And over on WCCFtech.com, they're reporting on an interview with the Financial Times from CEO and founder Yes Guillemot for Ubisoft. And he's talking about cloud streaming and why they wanted this deal. So this is what he had to say. When Netflix, and remember, when Netflix first said it was going to go into streaming, their shares fell a lot and they were widely criticized. Today, we see what they have become. It's going to be the same with video games, but it will take time. But when it takes off, it'll happen very quickly. Now, obviously, Netflix used to be a DVD rental, like mail service. So what they became is something pretty wild. And there were big companies like Blockbuster basically actively betting against that reality. Well, Netflix exists. Blockbuster is a terrible show on Netflix. So we know who won that. Yves goes on to say, we strongly believe in the next 5 to 10 years, many games will be streamed and will also be produced in the cloud. That's what's pushed us to go forward with the Microsoft deal. And then here's an interesting thing he noted. He also noted that developing countries might jump more quickly than others onto cloud streaming, providing access to regions that traditionally do not engage with the console market, which is the market these companies really want. When you look at what Microsoft wants to do with Game Pass, or when PlayStation talks about they want to suddenly reach hundreds of millions of players with their games that normally sell like 20 to 30 million copies, what are they talking about? They've saturated current markets. They're looking to go into these developing markets. And what Yves is pointing out is that countries that need to progress very quickly often jump to new technologies and skip old methods of the old systems. So it's very likely that as these countries modernize and their wealth increases and they want more recreational activities and they get more into gaming, they will skip some of the old systems. They won't be as beholden. They won't have the nostalgia or the attachment to physical devices like consoles. They're much more likely to be comfortable doing cloud streaming on a handheld or on a mobile, especially if they're already mobile gamers. Whereas I believe in India, for instance, over half of gamers are mobile only, and that number is climbing. So it's interesting to see where this goes. Obviously, cloud is not there yet, but what these companies are looking at is it probably is going to be there in 5 years, 10 years. And we weren't able to stop the move from physical to digital. I don't think we're going to be able to stop the move to cloud. So I think people kind of need to be ready for it. I know in the hardcore audience, there is much fear around it, but dun dun dun, it's coming. And yeah, that's basically it. I should go.